2019 Finance Committee meeting to order. We have two things on the agenda. Number one is the airport hangar. Airport Manager Lance Fair is looking for a recommendation of the full council to approve the construction of FAA-sponsored 6-bay T-hangars. The total cost of the project is $940,000, and the city share, 5%, is $47,000. Funds are to come from the Airport Hangar Reserve account. We've talked about this a couple times, right?
Yeah, this one is scheduled to actually go to bid this spring and go out. If you look at the $47,000, that comes out of hangar reserve account at the airport. And basically, on those new rentals that we would have in there, that would pay that back in just over 2 years' time. So you pretty much get a $940,000 hangar paid off in 2.5 years.
What are we getting on the rentals? Do you know?
They haven't set that yet. They're looking between $150 to $200
A month.
Yeah,
How does that compare with other areas? Do you know?
it's competitive. Yeah.
Okay.
This will be a nicer hangar, so that's why, it all depends on what you look at. I mean, if you look at Norwich Walk or some of the other airports that have a little bit, they have some hangars that are made out of fabric and stuff versus metal, so they don't rent those for very much money. We're a little bit cheaper than like Bangor is in their hangars, but it's competitive to, Lincoln or Holton.
Something our size.
Yeah.
So we're getting a good return on the investment?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that $47,000 will go back into that hangar reserve, like I said, in just over 2 years.
2-year payback.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, and this is on, I think this is on our next meeting, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So can I get a motion to move this to the full council for approval, please?
So move.
Kyle, and that would be Stan. Discussion, all those in favor? 4 of us, 4-0. Okay, thank you. Second item, budget discussions. We'll continue the budget discussion at this point. We do have a meeting next. After this, we'll talk about personnel. I'm hoping, we sent out an email, and Stan and I talked yesterday, that at least if we can come to some majority anyways of what we're thinking we can settle with as far as percentage. I know, if I understand it correctly, the budget's all loaded, basically. You're just waiting to hear from us exactly, like, if you can get a number from us, you can kind of tell us what's there and what's not there.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard from all the department managers on what they would like to see happen. They're not under the illusion, and neither am I, that, this all has to make sense for everybody who's here in the community also. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out, which will drive some of what happens in the budget, is, where folks will be comfortable in looking at what type of increase that we would get this year. Is that a 1%? Is it a 5%? We kind of showed some hard costs in the budget documents that we originally passed out were, with the school and the county, with some of the negotiations going on with the unions. That was roughly just under a 3% increase, and looking at those hard costs.
That's the one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
596,000.
596,000.
Yeah.
So if we gave you a not to exceed thing, things that turned out extremely well in the late spring, if you will,
Right.
we could adjust that down a little bit. Like, for example, last year, what we did, we left a cushion in there.
Yep.
Just in case, but got it as low as we could get it with that cushion, so that if something popped up, that would take care of it, correct?
Yep. And I've talked some with department managers, particularly not all of them, because some of the requests, obviously, from the bigger departments are a lot more money, in trying to start down the road of prioritizing things. But if I get an idea of what you're looking at, the follow up on your question is, yes, I can prioritize a list and push things down on that list if, more funding comes in from municipal revenue sharing, or the school cost drops from what they did. Because again, David Walker gave me a number. He gave me a worst case scenario. He thinks it will be better than that, but he wants me to know this is where they're at. So if those numbers changed, we could come back. Maybe we could add a couple things on the list that's on there, maybe not. But
Well, and last year, didn't we all agreed on a 3%, but then once all the funding came in, we ended up at -1%. when it was all said and done.
Ended
wasn't
up
it?
at 1%.
1%. So we all agreed, I think, at 3, and then once all the revenue came in, we ended up way better than that. So I mean, I see what you're saying, that if at least we put a number out there, wait and see what the.
Yeah, we had an overlay in there.
Yes, we did. We did. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then
But
once
it's
the
just
funding
like-
comes
Yeah,
back.
it's like I said, on all the things that are loaded in there, municipal revenue sharing, again, general purpose aid, we left municipal revenue sharing flat. General purpose aid for education is what we've had loaded in there. So, I mean, we're not, like I said, when we passed out all the documents, what you got was worst case scenario. But it would be helpful if I knew that, last year's mill rate's $22.86. Are you willing to have that go up 5%, 4%, 2% from where it is? If I have that scenario, I can certainly come back and prioritize that list and say, based on the discussions we've had, this is where it'd be right now if nothing changed. And that'll obviously adjust as we work through the budget.
So, I mean, while we're thinking about that for a few minutes, I think there was a couple of us that asked some questions for Bill, maybe and Danielle. Did we get back? I think, Shirley, do you have some questions that we wanted to talk about, or thought there was something for the finance? I thought you had something you wanted to talk about for finance for tonight.
A copy of an invoice.
Okay.
Something you
Okay.
asked for the last meeting that you wanted to see tonight.
Yeah, I was trying to remember what it was, to be honest with you.
I think one of the things that, if I'm not wrong, was just what the total of the new.
All the positions, yes, if we took all the positions out of the
Yes.
budget, what would it be
Well,
like?
Yeah, and I thought.
A total
It
number.
was,
750,000 roughly.
It's over 700,000.
It's
600.
678.
Yeah,
is the
678.
So that was that first sheet you gave us, that was before we talked about any of the, you gave us one sheet that had a breakdown of all the hard costs and whatnot, so that's basically what we go back to.
Yes.
So taking that off the budget, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, that takes us down quite a bit, though, at a percentage. Yeah.
That's all the new positions.
The
All the positions that
678,
they want to
yes.
take care of.
Roughly, to think of that, every $100,000 that you either increase or decrease is about 1% on that rate. So that's like a almost 7% change.
Reduction.
In
Yeah.
the budget.
Well, I can give you my opinion, I don't know what everybody else is thinking. When I saw that first sheet with the, and you explained to me the, every $100,000 is 1%, so on and so forth, I was pretty scared of just those fixed costs.
Right.
Because the conversations I'm hearing, I just talked to a gentleman today that owns multiple properties in town, and he's very excited about the fact that the mill's gonna be opening up and hoping for some tax relief
Right.
going forward. I think if we throw any sort of a big increase out there this year, people are gonna go nuts. Because, yes, hopefully things are gonna be much better next year. I think this is the year that my personal feeling, I think we gotta buckle down and hold things as tight as we can this year with the anticipation of hopefully things are gonna be so much better next year, then we can start talking about, adding 2 positions here and adding a position there and be able to pay for it.
I
But the definition of as tight as we can?
My definition of as tight as we can would be no increase,
0?
yeah. But I know that's, realistically, that can't happen.
Okay, so.
Well, not unless somebody finds some extra money somewhere.
Realistically then.
I don't know, 1%, 2%? I mean, if they put together a budget and then threw it at us right now and said, we can do this, we'll have a 2% increase, but you got to vote on it tonight, I'd probably say, okay, I'll go with that.
Okay.
But I certainly couldn't support something that's 5 or 6 or 7%. There's
Yeah, I
absolutely no way.
was kind of thinking of 3% and seeing what the revenue does.
Right.
See where that takes us, giving it 3%, see what that looks like, they bring it back to us, and let's see what the revenue could take us down a couple percent, and they'll rate at 1% again, just like last year. That's kind of what I'm thinking at this point. But I agree with you as far as, I think next year with the Mills money coming in, and I think somebody brought this up at the last meeting, the Mill's going to open. Everybody thinks all the money's coming in. It hasn't come in yet.
Right.
It starts coming in next year. I think we're going to get to a point we can stabilize. Then those couple years after that, I think you can see some help, certain things they do down there that will help us go in the right direction.
The folks, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No,
No, the folks that I've spoken to are very frustrated because they think they've been pretty tolerant and everything keeps rising.
right.
And we seem to be putting the cart ahead of the horse. because we need positions for stuff that's coming. We need this for something that's coming. Let's get it here and then look and see what we need.
Yes, I agree.
You know, I mean, I was very discouraged looking at what came in. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, that was not good management.
I think,
I think that 18% just to throw it at us and then we're the bad guys is wrong.
Right.
I truly think you could have come in with a realistic number and maybe we could have worked with that. Right now, I'm overwhelmed. I'm looking at this and going, come on. I was insulted by this budget, what came in.
I don't know as this was a budget.
I
I think it was pretty clear that it's a wish list, and we need to
You're right.
hear that wish list to have employees know that their supervisors are working for them, and they give their supervisors a chance to present that just in case there's something that strikes the council's eye that they might feel is necessary to go. And if you don't ever hear that wish list, then you don't know what this town is missing that it needs.
Granted. But you need some,
I think that's what we're here tonight for.
okay.
Well, and one of the questions I asked Bill was for some priorities on positions, because if we get to a point where we say, okay, we've agreed on 3% hypothetically, and included in that 3%, well, we've managed to work everything out, we still have another $50,000 we can spend and stay in that 3%, and you're telling me we desperately need another person at Public Works and we could do it for 50,000, I'm gonna say, I'm okay with that. But I'd like to know, what are the actual priorities? What's the most important stuff? So when it gets down to, when, obviously that's your call, I need to add this position, I need to add that position. But I think it helped me make a decision when it comes down to what we're gonna spend is, I know that if we give them another $30,000, Bill has said that he can work it out so we can get this halftime position here and another halftime position there, and that would help tremendously. I'd feel better knowing that, we had some idea where that money is going to go if we agree to spend more money.
and I agree with that. I think at 3%, I'm not sure you're going to see any new positions at 3%. That's going to take it down quite a bit, because that, as Shirley had asked for at the last meeting, taking those numbers, all those positions out of there, is a 600, whatever you say, 80,000, yeah, $78,000. So I think even at 3%, I don't think there's going to be any new positions anyways for that. But I've been sitting here a long time, a lot of years, good or bad, and the department is, I do feel it's right for them to come with their wish list of stuff that they feel they need, knowing that this is when we start getting into the hard work now for the council. The hardest thing is always getting the council to come out and say, this is the percentage we're looking at. The minute we can do that, these guys can get right to work and start bringing stuff back to us.
So at this point in time, would, I guess the committee, be in agreement that if we said not to exceed 3%, and if we can go less than that, we're okay with that?
I'd like to see what that looks like, yeah.
3% knowing that there's still revenue coming in.
We're not gonna exceed that.
Yes, exactly.
And I don't understand completely how the fund balances work. Like, I
Right.
know we need a lot of equipment, and I know we've got some money set aside for that. I'm okay with spending some of that money to buy the stuff that we have to get.
Capital
I think
reserve
we
account.
should
Right.
get that, and I don't know how that affects the bottom line, if it's,
Right.
if we have to buy a $125,000 snow blower,
Right.
but we've got $125,000 set aside, was that factored into that 6% that you said we were gonna have for an increased cost, or is that gonna?
That's extra, but that's where we have a capital reserve account of just over $700,000. Like you
Right.
say, we could decide as the council to use that one-time money for that if
Right.
we wanted to.
We seem to be doing that every year, though, at some
But
point.
there's also something that gets dumped back into it, okay?
Yeah,
Let's take a minute here, okay? There's two things beyond the 3% that are gonna affect this budget. One of them is, are we going to borrow money for paving? We have two options there. We can
Yep.
borrow the money for paving, or we got what we sold that contract with PERT for, setting aside, and you can spend it. But that's one of those things, once you spend it, it's gone. We're never gonna have it again, but that would do maybe what we want to do for paving and Woodland Avenue. All right, so you could go either way there. It's gonna affect the budget whichever way you go. Unless you just say we're gonna leave it in the budget. If you leave it in the budget, we're probably done meeting. We're gonna cut stuff, and that's that.
Right.
The other thing that I think if we're gonna borrow the money, we need to consider is debt load down the road, and Bill's gonna tell us what it's gonna cost us per 100,000 to borrow to pay back over the next, I'm assuming 7 years, because that's what the last one was.
Right.
Knowing that in 3.5 years, we're gonna pay off the one that we did 3.5 years ago. So we'd have that back into the budget, if you will, but you gotta make it to that 3.5 years. And the other thing that I'd like to look at, because I believe we're in non-compliance, Bill, you probably could, I was hoping Scott would be here so he could address it, because he's brought it up 3 or 4 times, is if we put on the extra person on each one of the shifts in the fire department. Because right now, if they're out on a call and something's going on, and they get another call, they have to return the fire truck to the fire station. And I believe we're in non-compliance when they do that, and if something goes wrong, we're probably in trouble. But the other thing that I'd like to add to that is if we put a 6th person on a shift and somebody's sick, do we have to add one in for just that shift and pay overtime?
So are we in non-compliance, or is that just a
Yeah,
liability?
I think, and again, this is only from what I've heard, is I believe what he's talking about is not so much non-compliance as a liability issue. Because
Well, if
when
you're
that
liable, you're non-compliant, somebody's gonna make a
Right.
case out of it either
Right.
way, but yes.
I mean, I think what he's talking about is that they're coming back to the station with a large piece of equipment, coming back to pick up the ambulance, and having an extra person on the shift may mitigate that, but
Do we not have mutual aid?
what's
Does
that?
Orono not
It
come
depends on
over?
what they're out on.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yes,
saying,
we
that's
do,
the way
and
it's
yes,
always
they roll,
happened.
and yes, they're here, and yes, we go there
I
if we're
mean,
not somewhere
and-
else.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
but we've also got something with Bangor if they need to.
Yep, but if they've got if they're out at a fire or an incident or a car crash or whatever,
Right.
by the time they get Bangor or Arno there, this ambulance that they're sending to call, the guy may die of a heart attack or something. So you're not gonna keep everybody there and not return the
No.
fire truck and grab an ambulance.
The ambulance should be at
Okay.
the scene.
I'm just confused. We've been doing this all these years.
Yeah.
And
Right.
We're not
I'm
gonna
not-
roll every piece of
It's
equipment
been a long
together.
time since we cut all those positions, so I don't
Yeah, I don't-
understand that one either.
I think
An ambulance
maybe there's a
though.
possibility,
Have
maybe you
two.
could ask that question. I don't think it's
In the
non-compliant.
garage, I would think.
No, I don't, non-compliant.
I don't think it's non-compliant, and maybe there's a liability. We could
Okay,
ask the city,
liability.
we could ask the city attorney, because we've been doing this for a long time. I'm not convinced that all of a sudden now that's what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, no, in those positions, again, some of those positions that were asked for
For the
that
grant.
was grant.
We have the grant
related,
money.
So,
Right.
We have
again,
it?
no.
There is a grant money that they're hoping that we
Oh,
get.
we
60
don't. We
I guess
have it.
That's where I was getting to
Okay.
before we got sidetracked is, there's a safer grant that we could apply for, and we could make it contingent on that, which would give us, and you've got those 3 numbers for me, I assume?
Yep.
The percentage.
So the first year it cost us,
So it's 75 federal, 25 city. The next year it flips, so it's 35 federal, 65 city, and in the third year we'd pick it up in
the
total.
full thing.
The full thing.
So what we're saying is we could pick up those 3 employees and make it then each year, so what's it cost those 3 employees?
216,000.
216,000, that's
If
benefits
they
and everything.
yes,
Yes.
if they were in the if they got in the budget.
They had all their
If they
training.
got in the budget.
But that's why we put
So it's
all
gonna
those things
cost
that
us 25 this year, so that's 40,000? No, 50,
And that-
51,000?
and that's if you
Get your
again
calculator.
that grant would that's been applied for. There's several grants we've applied for. We loaded those numbers into the budget. Again, you talk about the 18%, but the 18% is a worst case scenario if you didn't get any of this stuff and this all got voted in, which I don't, like I said before, there's nobody under the illusion that's going to happen, but I want to make sure that you have all this information so you can look at it. This SAFER grant wouldn't really go into effect until probably this fall. So
Time you
again,
applied for it and got it, so it's gonna be reduced
it's a-
some also
it's
by
applied,
that.
right, because so say we get the SAFER grant in the fall, which is applied for, by the time you go through a hiring process and you hire these people on, we loaded this 216 in there to show you what the value of that is. I don't know, if they're only here for 3 months, you're gonna have to take off a percentage of that, obviously,
I
to,
don't know if my issue is so much this year, because we're talking 50,000, which is, granted, it's some money. It's
Second year, we're picking up 65% of it.
Second year, you're gonna pick up 65, and the third year, you're gonna pick up
Yep.
the
All
whole
of
thing.
it. I'm more worried about the second, third
So
year.
if we borrow money for paving, and we do a safer grant,
yep,
that's gonna impact next year's budget and the year after's budget
Yep.
substantially.
Yep.
You know, we're gonna add stuff to the mill, but we need to consider, my point is we need to consider that when we're looking at what we're
Oh,
doing
yeah.
down the road.
Yep.
And we can't take for granted that the mill is gonna spend beaucoup bucks. I mean, I think we're pretty much 80 or 90% sure that they're going to. But if, you know, if you do this and they leave town, then you're really in a world of hurt.
Oh, yeah.
People have left town before.
Well, we've
And
gone through
that
that.
gets right back to what I was saying before. It worries me that we talk about spending money that we haven't got yet.
That's correct.
You know, oh, well, let's put on 3 new positions because we're gonna get money from the mill next year. Maybe we won't. You know, I'd rather see the money first, and then we can talk about, yeah, now that grant looks that much better now that we got all this extra revenue coming in. I'm okay with that. I think these grants are a great way to go for adding positions when we can afford
When
it.
we have the money to pay for it.
Money to do it.
So,
You feel that way too, Carol?
Well, I think I'm okay with the 3%.
yeah.
I really am, because our fixed costs are 3%. You know, that's in the budget.
COL.
Yeah, and so I'm okay with the 3%, and hopefully we can do some things to come in under the 3%. I don't know, I've talked to a lot of people too. I haven't heard many people that are under the illusions that taxes are ever gonna go down. Even if the mill, I mean, most people, I just don't think people think taxes going down.
I think it can
They don't.
stabilize.
They may think they're not gonna go up, but I just don't
Right.
think they're gonna go down.
I think
Right.
they don't think it's not gonna go up.
But I haven't talked to many people that think their taxes, because everything else goes up. Our whole cost of living goes up, and I don't think it's reasonable to think that the city that we can get by without going up either.
Right. So, excuse me, back to the committee. Looks like we're thinking,
Saying the safer grants out,
we're gonna talk
that would
too,
help them.
we're gonna talk too at next meeting about personnel too.
Well, this isn't personnel,
No.
but
But back to the 3% at least, we kind of agreed on that, at least not to exceed 3%, so that,
I thought we did that one.
okay, we're just making sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think that's a good
It-
starting point.
okay.
Yeah.
And then, are we going to, as far as the finance committee, are we gonna meet again the Wednesday after break? We kind of decided to do that, right? That we
No, because I'm not in town.
consider that? We
Yeah,
can
I think
still,
that's why we were,
I thought we were gonna meet the first week in May, give them 2 weeks.
is that what, is that what, when is break, next week?
Yes,
Okay, so that, yes, 2 weeks, so that would be the first Wednesday in May,
yes.
is that right? I don't have a calendar in front of me.
That's 3 weeks away.
So what, so it'd be basically 3 Wednesdays from now?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
well, I mean, Bill and Danielle are gonna be busy with some numbers.
Bill also has 2 negotiations going on. They
Right.
have
Hey.
some numbers for every.
Is that enough time for you guys?
One of those
I mean,
is
mine-
tomorrow, the next one's May
nope, we're good.
4th, I
I
believe.
mean, my understanding is the budget's loaded, you just need a number so you can kind of go from there.
So that's financial help.
So back to your, I guess, the grant
And I
then.
agree with you on the grant. Yeah.
I'm not prepared at this point to
Because-
go forward. We don't know whether the monies are gonna be there to offset the
Yeah.
65.
At this point in time, don't put it in. And that might be what we put in if we're gonna add personnel, I don't know. I mean, that appears to me to be the biggest liability risk that we have. We're making it on everything else today, it isn't always comfortable, but we're making it.
Was there anything else that we had as far as, you get your questions answered? We know what Bill will prioritize is if we actually do get positions type of thing.
Well, the positions and the equipment,
Equipment, he can prioritize
I
that.
want to know what
Yep.
the
Yeah.
priorities are there.
Okay.
You know, I mean, because I looked at list of equipment when all the department heads went through, and I thought there was a bunch of really valid arguments there that we really
Right.
need this, we really need this. You know, I think we're gonna have to spend some of that money on
Right.
capital equipment for sure.
Once again,
But, you know, what's the most critical?
that's right.
you know?
I mean, in every year, we've always, last year when we took 100,000 out of fund balance, but every year it's always been about 200,000. Last year, we only had to do 100,000. There is over 700,000 capital reserve. Stan's mentioned about the perk money, you have monies there. Once you use it, it's gone. but you use a little bit of it, to help them out in some areas.
Or you could just leave it and keep doing out of capital reserve,
Yeah.
because it's still sitting there. And if-
That's right.
And if you get down to capital reserve, you just transfer it over.
Transfer some money over. Yeah,
All that money is just sitting there in these accounts, it's called one thing, but it's.
it's one big pot of money.
The council has a right to move it to
Right.
any account they
Right.
want to, if you need it in that account.
Right.
That's what it amounts to. I mean,
Right.
if we had a total disaster somewhere, we could just move that money and fix that disaster if you will.
I think historically, the city's always done well with equipment because we do have a reserve fund for
Yes,
equipment.
absolutely.
You talk to a lot of other places that they don't have that kind of funding. They don't, if they buy a piece of equipment, it's, okay, where the hell are we gonna get the money from that, to pay for that this year?
Right.
Where I think the city's always done really well keeping that money in an equipment reserve. I think it's good that we have that.
And lately, we've been looking at leasing things, which has helped out too. It kept
Right,
the-
leasing does
kept the
help a
number
little
down
bit.
too.
We passed it down the road.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, the only thing on the perk monies or whatever, I just caution just a little bit that you guys can spend it however you want to. Just know that, the perk plant's doing okay right now. Fiberite still hasn't opened.
I thought they received trash the other day. I read in the paper. The first load of trash.
They
Ah.
did receive like 150 tons or so.
Yeah, they have.
So they're supposed to be receiving 118 communities trash, which
Hasn't
they're not.
happened
The
yet.
rest of that's getting trucked to Norwich Walk for like the next 6 months. So let's,
It trucked up here. They switched it over to Norwich Walk?
most of it's going there. So let's just make sure that we don't really know where our trash is gonna end up going, so I would just caution on that one account to make sure we don't
The
take
other
too
part of
much
that is we may
money
have to
out.
close a landfill.
Hmm.
We're gonna have to come
Right.
up with $450,000 or more, close a landfill.
So I guess,
That's our emergency money to do that, if you will.
Right, right.
I'm not really up to speed on that money you're talking about. What is that?
The perk money.
Yeah.
It was money that we
So-
got given back to us.
Right, we didn't invest in the Fiberite, and I can certainly have that conversation with you, but long story short is we didn't invest in the Fiberite facility in Hamden. And so PERC paid us back our money.
Money that we put in.
Perk was a co-op to start with. Every community invested so much money to get it going. So Old Town said, write us a check, which was, I forgot, 765,000? 765,000. Bangor said, give me my $5 million, I'm investing it in Fiberite. So they took their money and put it down there in Fiberite, and are hoping for the best.
Yeah.
We didn't do Fiberite. We stayed with Perk, so now we're hauling our stuff to Perk for $78
Yeah,
a
that
ton.
was this past, yep.
$78 a ton. Those guys that didn't do Fiberite are now hauling their trash to Norwich Walk and paying the mileage to haul it to Norwich Walk, and still have to pay to get rid of their trash. I don't know what it's costing them a ton, do you?
I don't.
So far, we're smiling.
Okay. That's good.
Big.
Yes, so far.
So far.
You know, I've heard all kinds of things shot around about what Fiberite's gonna cost when they get up and running, because part of their business model, probably I'm on television, I look like an idiot, but that's all right. Part of their business model was recycling materials.
That's good.
Well, since they invested in Fiberite, that part of the model's gone. The seller can't, the only thing they're selling now is certain grades of paper and certain grades of plastic.
Right.
Some of that paper that they were making money on when the Fiberite plant came up, they're paying to get rid of now. They aren't selling, they're paying. So,
Okay, so how about,
so let's go back to the hot top paving. What's it cost us, $100,000 to borrow that money, to pay back over the seven and
Yeah,
a half years?
I guess I was thinking that you meant $1 million.
Okay, maybe.
So- You said that.
Well, we can divide it by 100,000, no
Right,
problem.
so roughly it's around 140,000. I just looked at the last bond we took out.
Yeah.
So it's about 140,000
A year.
a year.
on $1 million?
So that's 14,000 per million that we're gonna pay back a year, correct?
14,000.
That's
14,000.
14%, you mean? 14
You
what?
said 140,000 for a million
Right,
per year.
right.
So isn't that going to be
7 years.
It's 7 years.
14,000 per 100,000?
Right.
Oh, you break it down to 100,000. Now I see what you're saying. If it
So
was
if we borrowed
100,000, yes.
500,000, it'd be
Yes.
70,000.
Yes, now I see what you're saying, yes. Yes.
What was
A year that
the,
you're gonna pay back over the next 7 years.
Yes.
Yes.
what was the number that we had for all the paving that we really need to have done?
Well, and it-
50,000
50.
roughly.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if you included everything in that, which would also include like the
Woodland,
improvements to
Perkins.
Woodland and Colonial and all
Colonial.
that would have been around 578,000 or 71.
He did have those separate.
So if we
There's
did that, we
Yeah.
bonded it, we'd be looking at $80,000 a year. Okay, all right,
In 7 years.
all right.
Right.
And have everything done.
And have everything
Everything
done.
done.
Well,
Well,
everything
everything's
done
on
this
board.
year.
This year, yeah.
We're gonna have the same payment bill next year, if you will.
Right.
Plus, you're gonna have that extra
80,000.
Right.
80,000 on top of
Right.
that, which is a lot different than 400,000, but you're gonna
Right.
have that 80,000. But after 3 years, that's gonna neutralize that out, if you
Right.
will.
No,
Right.
The way we looked at that and budgeting that too is that, you can, if you put that money into those roads and that bonds for 6, 7 years in that time frame, you can pretty much count on, once you put that money into those roads, you're not gonna go back and do anything to those roads. You're not
Right,
gonna
they're
have to
done.
Shouldn't be.
for that time period.
And that's kind of cool, we got all the roads that we had done last time. I
Yes.
drove over, and most of them looking pretty
Oh, yeah.
damn good
Yes.
shape, the ones that they did, because they
Yeah.
did them right.
Right.
So, which makes a big difference in how they figure that. Are we willing to swallow 600,000 for paving at this point in time, to bond it?
These numbers keep changing, I don't know.
What'd you say?
You don't know?
First
it was
400, then it was 700, then it was.
He's saying 5, so now,
That's the whole.
All-
that's the whole-
yeah.
Number, Stan, stick with
You
it,
can
yeah.
do whatever you want to. That's what I'm asking. This is my council, this is our council.
All paving is,
we just want to make sure we know the right number.
right, all paving is,
We need $550,000 worth of paving done. We can bond that out for
Right.
$70,000 or $80,000 a year. I'm
Yes,
okay with that.
me too.
I'd rather do it that way and get it all done.
That's the number we're talking about, it's about 550.
570.
570, okay.
Let's just talk 600,000. make
There
it
you
round
go.
numbers.
Throw a couple driveways in there, too.
So 600,000 is 6 times 14, 84,000.
Yeah.
So we're gonna pay back 84,000 for 7 years if we bond that 600,000. Okay? Tentatively, you guys
Yeah.
okay with that?
Yep.
That's probably what you need to work on the budget right there then.
Yep,
Tremendously
You guys
helps.
Go from there and make it happen.
yep.
In 3 weeks, they'll come back and make a presentation to us, and you can look at it and say, oh, I don't want that in there, or yes, I want that in there.
And then we
Or you
can,
did a great job, we're done, we're gonna wait and see what we got for income and deal with it from there.
and then we can fine tune it at that point.
Yes, yes.
Yes, because right now, we got a huge conglomeration that's $2.5 million too high.
Right.
And there may be some things that are able to stay, and there may be some things that don't get put back in.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
depending on how things come
Another
back.
question, is the snow blower coming out of the hangar reserve, or is that coming out of our budget?
Out of the airport. So Customs and Border
Technically, that
Patrol.
doesn't affect us.
Right, doesn't
a
affect
hell of
us.
a lot. So you can discount, if you're thinking about equipment, you can discount that snow blower because it's coming out of hangar reserves, and we don't have to deal with it, because if he spends hangar reserves to nothing, then he's got nothing. He has, but that also gets replenished all the time with the rental on the hangars.
Should be.
It is.
It does, yeah.
You know, We've been
Yep.
spending money out of hangar reserves since I've been on the council, and,
Yep.
there's
It's
still money
time.
left there to do things. I mean, you got the 47,000 in there to do that, you got money to buy the snow blower and whatnot, and that's why the council is, and I think they had some wisdom doing that, because, this year for us, or last year, would have been really tough to say to the city, we're gonna spend money on the airport, because half the people think the airport should go away, instead of it being an asset to the community.
We good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll meet whatever that date is, 3 weeks from today.
May 8.
Thank you.
Hey, 4 o'clock. Does that work for you that time?
Okay. All right.
If I fit that in my schedule, I'll try.
Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So
Oh.
moved.
Second.
Stan, Kyle, all those in favor? 4-0. Okay, so we're gonna pass this along to Mr. Peterson for a special council meeting.
Are you taking notes? Now you take a roll call, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I am.
I'd like to call a special council meeting to order. Please turn off your cell phones, if you haven't already. Mr. Smart, would you do the pledge of allegiance, please?
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Silent roll call has been taken and a quorum is present.
We have no minutes, we have no petitions, or is there any petitions? I should ask communications or otherwise. Council President, I have nothing except we're blending the mill manager into the community. Mr. Sear hasn't donated, but he's gonna give them a great deal on a coach if they want to go down to Maritime Academy and bring the class up there to inspect the boilers and comment on the boilers and learn from the boilers. And we've given him a tour of Old Town Canoe, and as soon as we can line it up, we're gonna give him a tour of the bakery and let him meet the other business leaders in the community, if you will.
Good.
Standing committees, Zippo, city councilors. City attorney's not here, special committees, city manager.
Only one item. I talked with Doug Hill today. We decided not to plow the sidewalks. They were going out, and just the weight of the holders and stuff, they stopped doing it. So hopefully they'll melt off in 3 or 4 days, but they were doing more damage than they were doing good, so we just said pull them off.
I didn't plow my driveways, because I
Yeah.
figured out I was gonna do a lot more damage with the heat we're gonna
Right.
have tomorrow
So
than
we
would've been
just
good.
didn't do it. So
Good move.
if anyone asks you, that's what we did. Beg for forgiveness.
We have no consent agenda, we have no public hearings. New business. The city council will approving the construction of an FAA sponsored 6-bay T hangar at the airport. Councilor Klitsch.
Yes.
Oh,
You got it. You're good.
agreeing with you. Resolved, the Old Town City Council hereby approves the construction of an FAA-sponsored 6-bay T hangar at the airport. The total cost of the project is $940,000, and the city share is 5%. Which coming from the account number 3560, airport hangar reserve.
Any discussion?
Second.
Any
Second.
discussion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor? Item number 2, the city council will consider going into executive session for the purpose of discussing a personal matter. Councilor May.
Resolve, the Old Town City Council hereby approves going into executive session pursuant to Title MRSA Title 401, Section 6A, for the purpose of discussing a personnel matter.
Second.
All those in favor?